So let's see how it works. The recovery scenario manager consists of the following. The first is trigger event. Now what is trigger event? Trigger event is any event that interrupts your run session. For example, a window that may pop up on screen or a quick test run error. So these are the different trigger events which interrupts your run session. The second is the recovery operation. So the recovery operation is the operation which you do on the trigger event. The operation is to enable quick test to continue the running of the test after the trigger event interrupts the run session. For example, clicking an OK button in a pop-up window, or restarting Microsoft Windows, or closing the pop-up button. So these are the different recovery operations for the trigger event. The third is the post-recovery test run option. So suppose a pop-up is occurred, which is the trigger event, and the recovery operation for that is closing the pop-up button. Now after that, what you want the script to do? So that will be your post-recovery test run option. So do you want to stop the script run because of the pop-up, or you want to close the windows, or you want to want the script to move to the next iteration, or so there are different post-recovery test run option. So it instructs QTP how it should proceed after the recovery operation has been performed. So let's see now how to create a recovery scenario of our own. So one thing I want you to know is like we created function library which is independent of the script. That is, we can create a function library and associate it to any number of scripts. Same way, recovery scenario can be created independently and then it can be associated with the script. And also, like we had extension for the function library for the functions, that is .qfl and .vbs for the functions which are saved. We also have extension for recovery scenario, that is .qrs. So QRS is the extension for recovery scenario. Now guys, remember that these are the different resources of QTP. Whenever you're creating a project, you have different resources. Like we have shared object repository, which is saved externally in your local file system. The extension of shared object repository is .tsr. Similarly, we have virtual objects, which has extension .vot. We have recovery scenario, which we are going to discuss now, which has extension .qrs, and we have functions which have extension .qfl or .vbs. So these are the different external resources, okay, and these could be machine specific. So whenever you have a project, you have these resources saved somewhere in your file system, and if you want to move the project to a new machine, you need to have these resources with you in your local file system. You need to have these resources transferred to your new machine. So these will help you to execute your project. Otherwise your project will fail. So when I go to resources, I have an option called as recovery scenario manager. Okay, I click on that. So currently there is no recovery scenario created. If there is, I can associate directly with my script if it works. I mean, now what we can do is we can create a new recovery scenario. Okay, you have to click on this icon which indicates a new recovery scenario. So this is just an introduction. You have to click on the next button. Now this is the option for trigger event. So there are different trigger events options available, like the trigger event can be a pop-up window because of which your execution has stopped. It can be an object state, it can be test run error, or it can be an application crash. What happens is sometimes when you execute your application, due to the load, your application can crash, and which may because of which your run may fail. In that case, the trigger event can be application crash. So let's say I'm selecting pop-up. So now the next thing is specify pop-up window conditions. Okay, so you have to select the pop-up window for which you're creating the recovery scenario. So as you can see, there's an and icon, and it is written there, specify the conditions to identify a pop-up window for this recovery scenario. You can use a pointing and to capture the title and text value of the pop-up window. So I have to simply click on next button. So these are the different recovery operations. Now what do I want to do? Select an operation to perform when the trigger event occurs. So whenever the trigger event occurs, I can I can use keyboard or mouse operation, some keyboard or mouse operation on that, or I can close the application process. I can call a new function. I can make a function call, and that function has to be existing somewhere in the system, or I can restart Microsoft Windows. So these are the various or recovery operations that I can do for my trigger event. So let's say I'm choosing keyboard or mouse operation. So these are the different keyboard or mouse operation which you can do. So suppose the pop-up occurs. Do you want to press the enter key? Do you want to click the cancel button? Do you want to click the button with label this? Or you want to press key or key combination?